Plant-feeding mites are extremely common, and most plants have one or more mites that can attack them. The largest diversity of mites that attack our landscape plants are the spider mites in the family Tetranicidae. Some species, like the two-spotted spider mite, can be generalists that feed on a wide range of plants. Other species are quite host-specific. Unfortunately, because spider mites are very small, species identification by color and host is fairly unreliable. Spider mites are the major mite pests of many trees, shrubs, perennials, and annuals. In fact, most trees and shrubs have their own species that feed on the foliage. Oaks have oak spider mites. Red and silver maples have maple spider mites, etc. However, there are some generalist mites that feed on a wide range of hosts. Two-spotted, European red, southern red, and spruce spider mites are examples of these. Eriophyid or rust and gall mites are also common on ornamental plants. Rust mites cause plant foliage to yellow or rust in color due to chlorophyll extraction. Others in this group cause unusual plant growths or galls. Galls will be more extensively discussed later on. There are still several other families of mites that can attack plants, but most are relatively rare. The false spider mites are represented by the privet mite and the citrus flat mite and the Phalaenopsis orchid mite in southern zones. These mites are usually flattened and they make pits or depressions on host foliage. While more problematic in houseplants, the cyclamen mite and broad mites can occur on summer bedding plants in the landscape. Virtually all spider mites have the same life cycles, which consists of 5 forms. They generally lay eggs on their host plants. These can be spherical and smooth or have patterns on the chorion. Mite larvae hatch from the egg, and these only have 3 pairs of legs and roughly spherical bodies. After feeding sufficiently, the larvae become quiescent, that is, they don't move, to molt. Upon molting, the next stage, the first nymph or proto-nymph, now has 4 pairs of legs that are expected of an arachnid. Again, the proto-nymph feeds, then settles down, stops its movement, and undergoes the process of molting. The next stage is the second nymph or deutonymph. These are simply larger and generally sexually dimorphic, with females being larger than the males. Deutonymphs continue feeding until they are ready to molt one more time. During the final molt, mature males and females are formed. In most species, the males are distinctly smaller than the females and often have a more pointed abdomen tip. Females are the largest form and are generally oval or egg-shaped. In these close-up images of two-spotted spider mites, notice that the larva has 3 pairs of legs. Spider mites molt quite differently than most insects. Most insects split the exoskeleton down the mid-dorsal line, but spider mites split the old exoskeleton side to side in the middle of the body. Also notice that the image with the cast skins also has 2 nymphs in the process of molting. When mites undergo molting, they settle down and hold their front legs forward and hind legs backward next to the body. Spider mites have an unusual method of sex determination. Fertilized eggs develop into females, but unfertilized eggs develop into males. In many species, adult male mites will guard second instar females that are about to molt. In many species, adult male mites will guard second instar nymphal females that are about to molt. This ensures that that male will be the first to mate with a newly molted female. Most spider mites produce silk that can cover the host plants in various degrees. Some species produce abundant silk and others produce little silk. Apparently, the silk covering is used by the spider mites to escape predators. When they detect a predator, they are quite adept at moving into and under the silk threads, which can leave the predators behind. Most spider mites get from plant to plant by a process of ballooning. When mites are crowded, they often climb to an exposed branch, leaf, or needle. Here they will reel out a strand of silk while holding onto the plant with a pair of legs. If there is sufficient wind, the strand of silk will eventually lift the spider mite into the air. If the mite doesn't land on a suitable host, it will balloon again. Because of the sex determination of spider mites, a female nymph can balloon to a new plant where there are no males. In this case, all of her eggs will hatch into males. The kinky thing is that the female can live long enough for her male offspring to become adults, at which time they can mate with their mother and who can then produce female offspring. Thus, a single, unmated female nymph can start an entire infestation on a suitable host plant. The two-spotted spider mite is the most common species found in greenhouses. This species can also survive outside, but they are often killed by extreme cold winter temperatures. However, female mites often find cracks and crevices of buildings, landscape timbers, and stones where they can escape being subjected to temperatures below 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Since a single female can start an entire population the next spring, these can reappear year after year, even in colder environments. Spider mites can be divided into two groups, warm season mites and cool season mites. The warm season mites do best when temperatures are above 80 degrees Fahrenheit. In this chart, you can see that the two-spotted spider mite can complete its development in about 8 days at higher temperatures, but takes nearly 3 weeks at lower temperatures. Warm season mites are also more fecid at higher temperatures. In this chart, you can see that a female two-spotted spider mite can lay over 140 eggs during her shorter lifespan at 80.6 degrees Fahrenheit, compared to under 40 eggs over a longer survival period at 68 degrees Fahrenheit. When you multiply out the development time with the fecundity rates, you can see how warm season spider mites can explode during the summer months. Humidity also has a significant effect on warm season mite populations. Moderate humidity is best. In extremely humid situations where regular rainfall occurs, the mites often get fungal diseases. At low humidity conditions, they tend to desiccate and die. The two-spotted spider mite is most commonly a greenhouse pest, and it often gets reintroduced into landscapes each spring and summer when infested bedding plants are obtained from a garden center and planted in the landscapes. In landscapes, it prefers bedding plants, perennials, and many vegetable plants. In many areas where it can survive winters, its preferred hosts are roses, winged euonymus, and viburnum species. Winged euonymus plants located next to buildings and landscape stone walls are often reinfested year after year. The unfortunate problem with two-spotted spider mites is that they are often resistant to many of the commonly used miticides because they are regularly treated with these miticides around the world in greenhouses and field crops. The spruce spider mite is a common mite that gets on most of the conifers. It is especially troublesome on spruces and true firs, but it can occur on pines, juniper, and arborvitae. However, there is a yellowish tan mite that can also attack arborvitae, the arborvitae spider mite. Spruce spider mite is a true cool season mite that is most active at moderate temperatures that remain above freezing but below 86 degrees Fahrenheit. This mite can complete several generations each fall and spring. The mites extract cell contents from needles, which makes tiny yellow speckles. Over time, these turn brown and can give the tree an overall bronze look. The mites are concentrated on the needles, usually at their bases. Certain trees, especially balsam and Fraser firs, are very sensitive to spruce spider mites. When the needles are extensively damaged, as in this image, the tree will often drop the damaged needles, which means that only the most recent needles remain on the trees. This mite makes silk, which tends to accumulate dust and debris along the stems of infested branches. The eggs are generally attached to branches and bases of needles. I sample this mite by using a bang board technique. Simply hold a square-foot piece of foam board under a branch and strike the branch 3 times with a stick. Count to 10 and turn the board upright to let any needles and debris slide off. Then look at any specks moving on the board. With your finger, press on some of the specks in a streaking manner. The spruce spider mites are dark olive green, so if the streaks make a dark green mark, the specks are spruce spider mites. If they don't streak or make yellow or pink streaks, they are other mites such as seed mites or predatory mites. A few years back, I had a graduate student who studied the biology of the spruce spider mite. As you can see from this graph from 1993, the mite populations are high in the spring and off the charts in the fall. So this is a true cool season mite. Notice that when the daytime temperatures reached 86 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 consecutive days, the active mite population plummeted. This weather stimulates the females to lay estivating eggs, which are ones that enter into summer dormancy. These eggs won't hatch until cool temperatures return. A major problem with this pest is that damage done in the fall often doesn't become apparent until the following summer. That is the time that the yellow speckles turn brown. Of course, many homeowners think that they have to spray when the needles turn brown, but this is likely a time that the mites are not active and susceptible to the controls. This mite is best treated in early October or in early May. Most spider mites live on the undersides of host plant leaves, but the oak spider mites prefer the upper surface. You can imagine that rainy weather can be tough on these mites. This is another warm season mite that does best in the hot and dry weather of July and August. There are many predators of this mite, and since it produces sparse webbing, it is easy for predators to decimate populations. Like we learned with the two-spotted spider mite, most spider mites get from one plant to another by ballooning. But there are some evidence that mites can also hitch a ride with other insects or on birds. The term for this is called foracy. The maple spider mite, despite its name, is most common only on silver and red maples. It tends to avoid sugar and Norway maples. This is another warm season mite that can build up large populations on the undersides of its host leaves in June through August. The mite produces little silk and generally resides on the leaf undersurfaces. Mites that feed on leaf undersurfaces can be especially problematic when treated with soft miticides like horticultural oils and insecticidal/miticidal soaps. These kill only by contact, so applications have to be made in a manner to hit the leaf undersurfaces. The southern red mite is a cool season mite that attacks broadleaf evergreens in southern states, but it can attack deciduous shrubs in the fall before the leaves drop. This one is in the same genus as the spruce spider mite, and it also has a dark olive green body but red legs. When crushed, it makes a green streak with some pink. This mite can feed all winter on plants like photinia or redtop. By spring, all of the old leaves can have a blanched look. This mite can inhabit both upper and lower leaf surfaces. Because many landscape companies stop treatments in southern states in October and November, this mite often goes untreated until the damage is seen the following spring. It should be treated in October into December to protect susceptible plants during the winter months. The boxwood spider mite is often missed as its damage appears as scattered flecking or stippling on the dark green leaves. While it is a warm season mite, it seems to do best where boxwoods are shaded during the summer months. This species feeds from the leaf upper surfaces, but since boxwoods often have heavily waxed leaves, treatments often roll off the foliage unless a spreader sticker is added to the spray mix. The Honeylocust spider mite is definitely a warm season mite that feeds on the undersides of the Honeylocust leaflets. Infested leaflets first turn yellow at their bases, which can eventually expand to the entire leaf surface. Outbreaks often occur when pyrethroid insecticides are used to treat Honeylocust plant bugs or mimosa webworms early in the season. Apparently, these insecticides can also kill off the mite predators, and the released spider mites can cause extensive yellowing and early leaf drop by August. The European red mite is a common warm-season mite that attacks a variety of flowering fruit trees in the landscape, especially crabapples and serviceberry. The adult mites are a dark brown-red color, but they will often streak green because of the cell contents in their guts. This mite often balloons in midsummer if their feeding has caused early leaf drop. Like most of the warm-season mites, this species overwinters as eggs attached to branches, usually in crevices or in folds of branch scars. These are good targets for dormant oil applications that are made in the late fall after leaf drop. The two-spotted spider mite is notorious for webbing over foliage of plants in the greenhouse, but the Schoene mite occasionally does this on entire landscape trees. This spider mite feeds on several deciduous trees and can build up large populations by late summer. At this time, the mites can descend the trees en masse, coating branches and the trunk with their webbing as they abandon the trees to look for overwintering sites. This can be extremely alarming for homeowners, but this mite rarely causes significant long-term ill effects on host trees. In most cases, the mites will be hard to find in subsequent seasons. Our last spider mite is another unusual one. While it is technically in the spider mite family, the Clover Mite doesn't look anything like the other species. It has a dark olive green body that is covered with fine wrinkle-like lines of the exoskeleton. The first pair of legs are also elongated and are used like antennae. This is another cool season mite that is most active from September until freezing temperatures are the norm, and again in the spring from February or March into June. In spite of its name, this mite actually prefers to feed on turf grasses. It has an unusual behavior, however, of seeking permanent structures for molting and egg laying. When it feeds on plants, the mites often make streaks or stipples where cell contents have been removed. In turf, they often cause a blanching of the turf foliage, usually near a building or tree trunk, which is used for molting and egg laying. This mite can appear on basement walls by the thousands, so it is also considered a nuisance home invader. This species is often susceptible to insecticides used as perimeter treatments around buildings.